Good evening and welcome to our coverage of Election Night 2006. It is a fascinating night, maybe even historic. There were a number of things that we were focusing on tonight. 15 and 6 were the numbers. In the Senate, Democrats had to gain 6 seats from the Republicans, have 6 switches. So far, they have gotten 3. There are 4 outstanding Senate seats that we're going to be talking about as the evening goes on. To get control of the Senate, Democrats would have to win 3 of them, but we'll get to that a little later. In the House, the Democrats were going to have to win 15 seats from the Republicans to gain control. So far, they've got a plus 19. The Democrats have gained control of the House. They will be in control of that body of the Congress when the House convenes next January. So where we stand overall, I said, the Republicans have lost 3 seats to the Democrats in the Senate, 19 seats in the House. We're going to run it all down and tell you what races are outstanding as our Vote 2006 continues.
This is an ABC News special. Today, all across America, the people spoke. On Iraq, the war on terror, healthcare, the economy, values. And tonight, with so much on the line, we have the answers. Who controls the House and Senate? And what will tonight really mean for the race for the White House? From ABC News, this is Vote 2006. Now reporting from ABC News election headquarters in New York, Charles Gibson.
Well, we do have the results, and who controls the House? That will be the Democrats. Who controls the Senate? That is very much at issue right now, and we're going to get to all of this. And we're going to start right away by giving you some of the results that we're getting that are just bringing you up to date. We showed you that the Democrats have already won 19 seats from the Republicans in the House. Let me give you just a few examples and show you also some seats that the Republicans have been able to hold. Arizona is a state where we've gotten some recent results. Harry Mitchell there in the 5th District of Arizona has defeated J.D. Hayworth. Hayworth was 6 terms in the House. Harry Mitchell, a longtime mayor of Tempe, indeed they built a statue to him in that city. He was such a successful mayor. But Hayworth is a tough competitor, but nonetheless has gone down to defeat in that district. In Arizona's 8th district, this is one that the Democrats were almost certain they would pick up, with Gabrielle Giffords defeating Randy Graff, who is the founder of the Minutemen. A lot of people thought the Democrats won this race the moment Graff won the Republican primary, because he is a highly controversial and, in many respects, with his hard line on immigration, alienated some of the Republican voters. In the Arizona 1st District, there the Republicans were able to hold that district. Rick Renzi, one of the fascinating things about Renzi, he has 12 kids, and all of them have names that begin in the letter R. Once you get past Ralph and Renee, where is there? But anyway, Arizona 1st District is held by Rick Renzi. In Kansas 2nd District, and this is a surprise, this is a solidly Republican district, and Jim Ryan, everybody remembers, was a high school 4-minute miler. Ryan has had 5 terms in the House. George Bush carried this district with 59% in the 2004 election. Nancy Boyda had run against him and lost badly 2 years ago, defeats him tonight. Nancy Boyda, the new congressman from Kansas 2nd District.
Charlie, this is one of those scandal seats. Jim Ryan, after the Mark Foley scandal broke, said he didn't really know Mark Foley, even though Mark Foley lived on his street. The very next day, they found out that he was one of the hosts for a $1,000 plate fundraiser, never recovered.
George Stephanopoulos, our chief Washington correspondent, is joining us and will be with me for the next hour and a half as we report results. In the Florida 13th District, this is a district where Katherine Harris, the infamous to Democrats, famous to Republicans, Secretary of State during the 2000 election, when George Bush eked out that 537-vote margin to win Florida in the presidency. Katherine Harris left the district to run for the Senate. She was defeated badly there in Florida from the Senate race. And Vern Buchanan, an auto dealer, is 1,000 votes ahead. We project him as the winner. Oh, well, he's 100% of the precincts reporting. He has eked out a victory there over Christine Jennings. That race really shouldn't have been close. Buchanan poured an enormous amount of money, $5 million of his own money, into that race and wins narrowly.
We may be seeing a recount there. He's only about 360 votes up. This is a very close race, and that's something to remember. Even though we're projecting the Democrats are going to win the House, we may not know their final numbers for days or even longer as a lot of these close races come in.
In Florida's 22nd District, Clay Shaw has been 13 terms in the House of Representatives, considered a good member of the House. He goes down to defeat tonight to Ron Klein, who is a state senator, well-funded there. It hit him over and over again on the issue of Iraq, and we cannot emphasize how many races Iraq was the central issue. The Republicans wanted to make these races on local issues because they are local congressional campaigns. The Democrats tried to nationalize this campaign and were successful in so many districts. Clay Shaw, who was a real power in the House. In the Republican caucus, goes down to defeat.
Charlie, and to pick up on your point, we did a national exit poll tonight of what was on voters' minds. This election tonight, very clearly, a protest vote against the Iraq War, a protest vote against President Bush. Look at these numbers. 58% of the voters tonight said they did not approve of the job President Bush is doing. 57% said they do not approve of the war in Iraq right now. And then finally, we asked voters, how many of you are going to the polls to vote specifically against President Bush? 37% said they were registering a protest vote. Only 22% said they were going to the polls to support President Bush. About 39% said it wasn't a factor in their decision.
A couple of other House races that we want to talk about in Pennsylvania, in the 7th District. This is in suburban Philadelphia. A lot of Republicans touched by scandal. Curt Weldon, one of them, had 10 terms in the House, again a power in the Republican caucus, but there were raids on his daughter's office and accusations being investigated that perhaps he had funneled business to his daughter's lobbying firm. And when you have those kinds of pictures in the paper 3 weeks before the election, it's hard. Joe Sestak, a retired vice admiral on the Democratic side, this was the #1 race to Bill Clinton because Sestak had been on his national security staff. Sestak wins there over Weldon in suburban Philadelphia. In the 10th District of Pennsylvania, another so-called scandal district, Don Sherwood had to take ads to apologize to the district for having had an affair and perhaps beaten up his mistress. He settled a lawsuit that she brought against him for $500,000. When he went on television and made those kinds of apologies, it put Chris Carney, his opponent, in an awfully good position, and Carney has defeated Sherwood in Pennsylvania's 10th District. A couple of other districts that the Republicans had hoped to win from the Democrats. Now, I should point out, at this hour, the Republicans have had no switches, Democrat to Republican, but two races they're watching very closely in Georgia. In the 8th District, they were hoping to defeat Jim Marshall, the incumbent, and as you can see there now, with 93% of the precincts reporting, Mac Collins, who was himself a former member of the House of Representatives, is leading Marshall. That would be a pickup for the Republicans. They have not had one yet tonight that we can project. And in the 12th District of Georgia, another piece of perhaps good news. The Republicans have been leading in this race. Now John Barrow, the Democratic incumbent, is pulled into a narrow lead with 92% of the precincts reporting, but Republicans still have hopes in this district. But as of yet, we've been able to report no Republican pickups from the Democrats.
Which would be historic if it holds up. On the other hand, Charlie, if the Republicans can get those two districts in Georgia, it illuminates one of the big themes we're seeing tonight. Moderate, liberal Republicans up in the Northeast are getting beat. So the Northeast is getting more Democratic. The South getting even more conservative, even more Republican.
Cokie Roberts has covered the House of Representatives, as I've said, since she was about 6 years old. Her dad was a longtime member of the House from Louisiana, was the majority leader there, Hale Boggs, and Cokie knows the House, I think, about as well as anybody in the country. And Cokie, as you look at these results, now the Republicans, we've just had another call for the Republicans, they're now plus 20. At the moment, losing no seats, although that one seat in Georgia they're trailing. But this is quite a night for the Democrats as far as the House is concerned.
It is indeed, and the Democrats have worked hard for it after having had the House for 40 years and then having the shock of losing it. And it really was a shock in 1994 to them. They have toiled in the wilderness and worked hard to get back and are thrilled to have done so. Now, there are some really interesting races here, Charlie, and I said earlier that the Democrats were winning the low fruit, and that was because they were picking up districts where there was either scandal or where Democrats basically owned the districts. John Kerry had carried them in 2004, and Democrats should have had the districts. We've had a couple of big surprises since then, and they tell you something. One in New Hampshire, where the Democrat who beat the incumbent Republican, giving New Hampshire now 2 Democratic congressmen for the first time since Woodrow Wilson. That Democrat had won the primary much to the dismay of the Democratic Party because she was so far out on the war and she had no money at all, really no support, and she has won, and she's won because of Iraq. And then in Pennsylvania, where Melissa Hart was in a solidly Republican district, had no scandal, the Democrat who beat her just tied George Bush and Rick Santorum, the senator who was defeated earlier tonight in Pennsylvania, just tied them around her neck and wouldn't let him go. And he won just doing that. So it was Iraq, Iraq, Iraq. Now that Democrat is a pro-gun, pro-life Democrat, as is the Democrat who won for the Senate in Pennsylvania. So we're going to have a lot of mixes and matches inside this Democratic Party when they convene in January, having taken the House.
And I should mention, by the way, that the ABC News decision desk and ABC News in general is projecting now, when we get to the end of this, that somewhere the Democrats will pick up somewhere between 26 and 38 seats in the House of Representatives, which will give them a comfortable majority there.
Relatively comfortable majority. It also put them right in line with what has happened to war presidents in this country all the way going back to 1860. On average, there have been 5 congressional elections done during wartime since 1860. The presidents have lost about 35 House seats and 5 Senate seats in those elections.
Just to mention, by the way, the 20th House seat that we see going from the Republican to the Democrats is the Wisconsin 8th District. That is where Mark Green, the Republican, has retired to run for governor in Wisconsin, and we're projecting now in the Wisconsin 8th that Stephen Kagan will beat John Gard for that, the 20th seat that the Democrats have picked up. We're now ready with a projection in the Tennessee Senate race. This is a race that the Democrats had hoped to win with Harold Ford Jr. We are now projecting that Bob Corker, the mayor of Chattanooga, will win that Tennessee Senate seat and hold it for the Republicans. That is a big victory for the Republicans and makes it even more problematical that the Democrats can gain control of the Senate. And we will show you why in just a moment. I want to show you the switches in the Senate so far tonight. We have 3 switches from Republican to Democrat. Those are in the states of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. 3 switches, Republican to Democrat, in those seats. You see the chips in that blue square